sorry. I didn't want to interrupt the very interesting story that you had. And I just want to interject by saying you're a fantastic cook. So I don't know what you're talking about, and I'm sure you'll back me up on that one because I have had proof of that. So, FOMO is real, guys. And, I think I'm of the generation. The first time I saw the word FOMO, I was trying my best.
Latifah, can you come near? Because we can't hear you. Can you come near? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is better.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was saying that I'm of the generation that when I heard the word FOMO for the first time, I was like, what is this new acronym that I couldn't figure out what it meant? Because, we live in an age where people are constantly coming up with these different ones and I'm struggling to keep up. It's real. It is so real. And I think it's more real for the new generation, the young adults, the teenagers, this whole sense of, this fear that you're missing out on something. And I think, as psychologists, we've had a lot of discussion around it. And one of the things we came up with was the fact that social media and this whole explosion of social media, forget the time of the pandemic, just talk in general. Absolutely. The explosion of social media has created two types of monsters that we used to only deal with in practice. One are the exhibitionists who like to show, and the other are the voyeurs who like to look. Right? And essentially, this is what social media has done. You have some people addicted to looking at everything and other people who are addicted to showing everything. And in that process, it has created so much of discomfort for all of us because there is that sense that there's something that everybody else out there is doing that I should be doing. And yes, it's real. Okay. Is it valid? Is it something that we should allow to run completely unchecked in us? No, we shouldn't. Right? And the reason you and I are talking about it, I think, because under the current circumstance, without that ability to go and see, hear, touch, smell, and taste for ourselves, the only thing that we have is this exposure to what people are choosing to post. And people are posting because they also want to find a means of connecting and sharing. Remember that we spoke the last time about the fact that as human beings, we're wired to connect with each other. So this constant need to make sure that somehow somebody validates what I do is the reason that I post it. But I think that we don't think about what the implications of that are. So to answer your question again, it's real. Should you let it go unchecked? No, definitely something new.
I completely agree. And I was reading this an article earlier this week, and it basically talked about they had surveyed global teenagers, and some of the statistics that came out, Latifah, were quite disturbing, to be honest with you. And I'm not sure how in your practice if you've been seeing this, but they said, and now guys, we're talking about globally the teenagers, right? 66% of global teenagers have an urge to go and share their details online on what they're doing. But what the most disturbing part to me that I thought was 60% of teenagers are reporting that they feel worried and anxious when they find out that their friends are up to something. So their friends have gone to the movies or the friends have gotten together. And I feel like it's not just with teenagers, right? I mean, we see it amongst friends, and we'll later get into more workplace. I guess my question to you, Latifah, is that can FOMO actually cause depression and anxiety? Or perhaps a lack of focus? Can FOMO be a cause for some serious illnesses like these?
Absolutely, and I think it's such an important point that you raised because I think, you and I were having a discussion. I have seen a lot of teenage patients who are actually suicidal because of FOMO. I've had patients referred to me because they feel as if their lives are not valid. If they're not part of that group that is doing the stuff that all the in crowd is doing, they feel that somehow they are not good enough, they are useless, they are not popular, and nobody wants to be with them. So it's definitely spinning over into what we see as clinical depression. We're seeing young adults, teenagers have panic attacks because of it. Even some studies that I came across which showed adults that are part of large groups in social media feeling extreme forms of FOMO because of what some members of the group are posting, number one. Number two, there are micro groups that form and then feeling the anxiety that they haven't been invited to those micro groups as well. So yes, absolutely, because remember that when we defined, I don't know if we did this in an earlier session, but the definition
Latifah, your voice is cracking up. I'm so sorry to interrupt. But
okay, so you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to take off these parts. Just give me a second. Okay.
Is this better?
Much better. Thank you. Yeah. Sorry about that, guys.
Absolutely. So, anxiety, in clinical terms, we define anxiety as a fear of something which may happen, which most likely will not happen. Now, isn't that interesting? FOMO is actually all of anxiety begins with a fear. So it makes absolute sense that if you are experiencing FOMO, you are experiencing a form of anxiety. If and another thing is that a lot of people don't acknowledge it, and you were talking about that earlier. You had some comment around that, right?
Yeah.
About the fact that people don't want to acknowledge that they have it.
Yeah, I mean, I was joking about it, but the truth is that, like, you do feel it. I'm not kidding about the fact that I've been looking at my friends making all these videos, and everybody feels, and it's, to me, it's a sense of accomplishment. Like, it's one of those things, like, I'm missing out on being a more productive human being. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it does seem like that. Sorry, you were saying?
you know I think you're right. And Rabi, I happen to know you really well, and you're quite a grounded person, and you're experiencing that. So can you imagine people who don't have a true sense of who they are, who don't have confidence in who they are? Imagine the implications for them to see that and compare themselves. In psychology, we have something called internal locus of control versus external locus of control, and I'm sure you've read about this. So people who have a high degree of confidence have a very strong internal locus of control, which means that things that are happening on the outside are not going to impact them as strongly. But a vast majority of the population have a very strong external locus of control, which means that everything that comes, all the stimulation, all the comments, all the input that comes from the outside is going to have a huge impact on what they feel and what they think about themselves. And therefore, this situation where people feel the need to constantly post stuff and other people look at it and feel a sense of missing out on something has huge implications for people, especially those who have not been able to confront their true identities, not confront their true personality, and then see other people soaring. Because let's face it, has anyone seen anything on social media that's bad, that's ugly, that people post, that the food that they burnt or the fashion bloopers that they have? People always post the best things. And then our brain somehow takes on the idea that everybody else's life is perfect and somehow mine isn't, which is a myth. It's not true.
Right. And I love the comment that you, when you and I were having that discussion, you made about how people experience FOMO for the life that they're missing out, right? Perhaps you can share that with our friends here as well.
Yeah, guys, I think some of you would be able to relate to the fact that there is that FOMO, and I'm not a person who sees stuff on social media and feels that I'm missing out on anything, because one of the first things I realize is that the constant need to post everything on social media says something about you. It says that you are lacking something internally and you're looking for validation on the outside. So I always look at it that way and see it that way, and I don't feel the need to then feel like I'm missing out on something. If you're posting in terms of business and in terms of things you're doing, wonderful. That's something we all should be doing. But when you constantly feel the need to post every side dish that you cook, it says something about your own internal rating. So that's one part. But the other part, I think, which is a huge element of FOMO that people are probably missing, is the fact that there is a whole life that we planned for ourselves. We planned it at the beginning of this year, and suddenly the ground got swept away from under us. For most of us, I think that's something we're grieving for, and we have FOMO for, is the life that we planned that we're missing out on, and we're not sure. And I see a thumbs up coming from Rida saying exactly right. And I'm pretty sure, hit the thumbs up, whoever thinks that's true, because I think I feel that. We look at the news sometimes and we're thinking about these holidays we planned in Italy, and we're thinking, are we ever going to be able to go back?
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you?
Sorry, guys. I think I had muted myself. No, absolutely. I think that's such a valid point that you make. But Latifah, when we're talking about this, like, FOMO leading to feeling bad about your personal life is one thing, but letting it interfere in your career, I feel like that can be even more damaging. And I feel like this concept of FOMO is really trickling down a lot in work, especially in these times. As I hear from a lot of my friends who are in the corporate world, as people are at home, stuck at home, they're not meeting these people enough, right? So they have this constant what if. what if I'm missing out on certain meetings? I have this urgent need to be part of every meeting. I have this need, otherwise, what if I'm going to be replaced? So I think the what if question that's coming up is really causing a lot of anxiety, especially in workplaces. What do you suggest about that?
Well, absolutely right. I just got off a call with a client that, he lost his job a couple of months ago before the whole pandemic. And he was describing FOMO, people who actually have work, right? So there was that one element of people who've lost their jobs experiencing that for when they watch other people get busy with online sessions and online video calls. So that's one element in the corporate world. And I think that's very real. But what we're seeing emerging, and I've had a lot of chats with some of my corporate clients, is people feeling so afraid and feeling so worried about the fact that they may not be able to retain their jobs, that they are excessively getting involved in meetings and sessions and being annoyed and affronted if they get left out of a meeting, because they think that somehow that heralds the doom. It heralds somehow the axe is going to fall on my head. So that fear of missing out on a meeting, which you would probably never bother to attend if you were at the office,
Sure.
or a manager who is constantly asking you to update on every single email that you send out because he's worried that he may look like he doesn't know what he's doing.
Right.
It's a whole new reality that has emerged where people are starting to want to feel relevant, and then there is this over communication. I don't know what you guys think. Those of you who are working in offices, we'd love to hear your comments later, but are you hearing that from your clients, Rabi?
Oh, absolutely. Very similarly. And there's this other concept that I feel like is as well, which is similar to what you were saying about missing out on life, which kind of falls on the career as well. That's about the concept of like, what am I missing out? What's the next opportunity? So it's almost like an opportunity FOMO, right? Like, what opportunity am I missing out? Like, and this constant, like, if I have said no. In fact, I had a client recently who um, declined an opportunity that came to him. And this is just before this whole corona situation. He declined a very big opportunity in Dubai that came up and stuck to his job. But he can't rest. He can't, even though he's made the decision to stick with his current job, he's constantly thinking about, what if I've made a bad decision? What if I've kind of, so that what if, I feel like, I don't know if I would still call it a FOMO, but it still kind of falls into this category. What would you say?
Yeah, well, look, in psychology, we always talk about, if you're going to say what if and add something, what if everything works out the way I wanted to,
Sure.
So you need to change your what if narratives to something that is positive, because we tend to get trapped in the cycle of, what if that was a better job? What if this doesn't work out? What if the sky falls down tomorrow, right? And you really need to change those what ifs into something more positive. What if I took the job and I got retrenched because so many people in Dubai and all other countries are going to be losing their jobs? So I think what if is getting a lot of people into trouble. And that has been the kind of thinking that has gotten us into trouble even before the pandemic, but even more so now, right? Because I think when we become fearful, and because there is so much of uncertainty, we don't know when we are going to fully emerge. We do know that it's going to be a new normal. We do know that it's going to have to bring a version of ourselves that we're not even familiar with. And that in itself is creating a lot of anxiety for us. So we fear missing out on what's familiar as well.
Sure.
That's the other, yeah.
Absolutely. Latifah, we have a question here, which I feel like is very relevant. Prashant is asking a question. So I'm going to read it out loud over here. And what he's saying is that, I've had this with or without COVID. It's not about, it's about information. I believe whatever I have is not enough. Sometimes that stresses me out. So it's this constant, and I think the other comment he made later was, it's also so much bad news that he's hearing constantly, right? So I'm sure there's one part to it, which is like, FOMO of like, am I missing out on the news, especially with these statistics and stuff that are constantly coming out, right? And I think the other part is, which I think he raises a really good point of, whatever I have is not enough. And I think that concept stresses him out, right? So sorry, go on.
Prashant, I think that you won't be alone. I think if we open up the mics and we ask everyone, and we open this to a lot of people, you're going to hear that at a personal level. You're going to hear it at a corporate level.
Sure.
And essentially the comment you're making to yourself is, what if I am not enough? It's not even what if I don't have enough. It's what if I am not enough. And I think that is something that is something that challenges most of us and gets most of us into trouble. And I think the most important thing we can do is, what if I am? All right. It's just changing the question to what if I am? And the next one, which is, how much is enough? Okay.
Sure.
Because there's never going to be enough. There's always going to be someone who's achieving more, who is doing more, who is able to do so much more. And you have to set that boundary for yourself. You've got to tell yourself, how much is enough? When is it going to be enough? Define that for yourself. And ask yourself, what if I am enough? Because honestly, in somebody else's life, you are more than enough. Okay. In somebody else's achievements, you are more than enough. So I guess today, really, Rabi, we've been talking a lot about shifting perspectives. It's
Yep.
really about shifting perspectives. And that's what we really need to be actioning and thinking about.
So what would be the key to fighting off this FOMO? Or what is the key to saying I am enough or I have enough? And that is?
I think it's practicing gratitude, right? It's the first practicing gratitude. It's just taking a look at yourself, looking inside and being grateful for what you have. Whatever you have right now is exactly what you need. You may not realize it because we're just hungry human beings. We're constantly looking for something more. While you were talking earlier, it reminded me of a friend of mine when we were at university, and her boyfriend proposed, and they had a very stormy relationship. So it was very intriguing that he did propose. And this was her comment to me the night that we were talking about it. She said to me, what if I'm just settling? What if there are so many better men out there and I choose to marry this one?
Yeah.
Okay. So, this is our human nature. Nothing is ever enough. What if? We don't know. We are required to take leaps of faith in everything that we do. But most importantly, I was reading something, about all the things that this pandemic has challenged us with. And one of the things is that it's challenged us to confront our true selves. And most of us are not comfortable with that. So, the takeaway has got to be, practice gratitude for what you have and practice acceptance for who you are. Because when you do that, everything that comes from the outside is going to be put in the right perspective for you.
So well put, Latifah. Absolutely. Latifah, Anjum here has a really interesting question, and I'll read it out, and then we'll open up the mics to everybody as well. She's saying, I, as an employer, I decided, what if I don't push any one of my colleagues to do anything? I found after some period of rest, all of my teams, except for one, started to work efficiently by themselves. What if we don't push people and see what happens?
Well, you know what? I have to applaud you for that, because that is what we call leading in transformational style. This is the kind of leadership we were talking about, leading in the new normal. If you trusted someone enough to give them a job, then trust and respect them enough to know exactly what they need to do to perform. And that is what leadership is all about. And this particular situation is helping us to identify the leaders that are going to be relevant in the new normal and those who are going to be left behind. So well done to you. It is absolutely the right approach, in my opinion.
So guys, we'll open it up to anybody else who has a question. So just ping me or let me know, and I will open up the mic for you guys.
And even if you don't have a question, even if you have a comment that you'd like to share, we would love to hear it.
Yeah. And if you are not going to have a question, then I'm going to actually pick on somebody who requested for this talk. So Sadia, are you there? Since you have requested for this conversation and we have Latifah here, please go ahead and share what are you experiencing or seeing about FOMO at work.
So I think not so much at home, but at work. I think while everybody is getting used to this new way of working, and honestly speaking, 6 weeks into it, I've been working from home for the last 6 weeks. It's far more productive, than working actually at your office premises. But I think one thing that does stand out is that everybody is worried that am I and my projects, are we getting enough airtime? is what I am working on, important? Or, because when you speak to each other now over the phone, you realize that somebody will say, oh, I presented and that got approved, or I got funding for this or whatever. And suddenly you go into this spiral, right? You're like, oh my God, my project still has not been presented. I haven't gotten funding. Am I doing the right thing? So, there is a certain level of anxiety. But at the same time, I do think that it's also kind of like enabled a lot of us to kind of let go of all that negativity. I don't know if you guys get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So I think that I've managed to filter out, bulk of my conversation. And I was saying this to Rabi the other day, that, people who would randomly come and tell you, this is happening, that is happening, and that would just take your anxiety level to a different level, right? And now that you don't have access to people in person, it will just drive you insane. So, I mean, I completely agree that, that, I think you just have to keep on kind of like reiterating this to yourself that, it's all going to work out, and whatever we are doing, it's meaningful and it is important in its own way. And you're not competing with anyone. You're driving something very different. We all have our own trajectories.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sadia. So, what do you, sorry, go on.
I think what Sadia said is so valid, and I think it's also, when she spoke about filters, it reminded me of something about the fact that, when we're under extreme stress, we actually lose our own filters, and we start taking on the filters that people are publicly posting, and we stop filtering for ourselves the kind of information that we want to take on board. So, when people start over talking about the achievements that they had, especially in a time like this, it speaks to their lack of confidence in the actual achievement. So you need to realize that when you really achieve, you don't really need to go and exhibit it to the whole world. So your filter needs to be, filter who you listen to, filter what you read, and listen to yourself. This is your best time to activate your own confidence in what you do. You did get the job, you did perform in the job, and you will continue to do so. And if you don't, something better is going to come along. This is the cycle of life. So there are certain things within our control and certain things that they're not.
And Latifah,
show up as the best.
Yeah. And one other thing that I'm kind of noticing also, and I think a couple of people will also vouch for that, is the fact that people are working a lot harder. So I think because of this whole uncertainty in the air about people's jobs and stuff, people are literally working 20-hour weeks because they're at home, they have access from a technology perspective. And I think that concept needs to kind of sink in, that while work is infinite and our time is very finite. So guys, we need to have that balance, because if you keep kind of being in this FOMO mode and trying to work hard and overachieve, you'll just burn yourself out. Right, Latifah?
Absolutely. Work-life synergy is more relevant now than it ever was, because there are no physical boundaries, which means you need to create even better boundaries to create those synergies between your work and life. So it's even more relevant. But Rabi, if there's no other question before the next question pops up, the one thing I think we missed out talking about is a lot of parents are experiencing FOMO now from watching what other parents are doing. And I don't know if that's relevant for you. You're seeing these parents doing this with their toddlers and those parents doing that with their teenagers. And I've seen a lot of parents starting to doubt themselves and doubt whether, am I a good enough parent? I'm not doing any of these. I'm just barely managing to get through the day with the homeschooling and the work and the cooking the food and doing all of those things. Again, questioning, am I a good enough parent? Because you're watching what everybody else is doing. Well, guys, if these parents have enough time to post what they're doing, they're obviously not as busy as you are, all right? You're juggling so many balls in the air and you're doing a fantastic job. So just remember to validate that as well. Every parent is on a learning curve and everyone is doing the best that they can. Choose to take the positive messages from those that are giving you really valuable tools, and the rest that need your validation, you need to filter that out.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest takeaway for me from this conversation is that to have gratitude, like you said. And I think if I bring the practice of gratitude in my everyday life and just every little scenario as well, I think it just puts things in perspective, right? And then we don't get stuck in that mode. Where and I think like, and it's real, because even I will admit to the fact that last week I just felt like I was running so fast. And I was pushing so fast and because I constantly had this feeling of, I need to get more done. Because I'm at home, I feel like, am I slacking? I need to get more done. And literally, I think Aisha told me to do this back and look at everything that you've done in the month of May. Why don't you just kind of put together the tally of that? And when I did, I was like, well, actually, I kind of accomplished a lot. But it puts things in perspective, right? But otherwise, you're just constantly running in terms of, again, like the fact, have I done enough?
Yeah, but I think also, Rabi, I mean, there are people on the chat who are probably, looking at, maybe they don't work, maybe people are at home. And I don't think this is a period of doing. I think this is a period of being. And
Yeah.
if you can really, really latch into the fact that this is really an opportunity to get in touch with your being while you are doing whatever it is you need to do, but this is really a period of being, you're going to get something really meaningful. You're not going to be the cordon bleu chef. You're not going to be the artist, and you're not going to be the fashion designer, but you're really going to be in the moment and be the best version of yourself. And if you emerge that, then I think this virus would have really served a very powerful purpose.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you. I know Arshia has a question, but I'm trying to figure out, she doesn't have a mute button. So I'm trying to figure out, Arshia, if you can unmute yourself if you have a question.
Maybe you can read the question out, Rabi.
Oh, I think that she's saying she can't hear. Arshia, maybe try just turning up your volume. So I think we're almost running out of time, Latifah, as well. What would be your kind of conclusive statement over here?
Well, I have two. One is, I think, gratitude, as you reiterated, and the other one was simply learn how to say no. If you are somebody who doesn't know how to say no, this is a great time for you to learn how to say no, because this is how you manage your boundaries. But I found something that was written that was really nice, that I think ties up a lot of what we were trying to say. So if we can close with this, it's a little long, so just bear with me. But I think it ties up a lot of what we wanted to say, what we were saying today. The fear of missing out is what happens when scarcity slams into shame. FOMO lures us out of our integrity with whispers about what we could or should be doing. FOMO's favorite weapon is comparison.
Yeah.
It kills gratitude and it replaces it with not enough. We answer FOMO's call by saying yes, when actually we mean no. We abandon our path and our boundaries and those previous adventures that hold meaning for us, so we can prove that we aren't missing out. But we are. We are missing out on our own lives. Every time we say yes because we are afraid of missing out, we say no to something. That something may be a big dream or a short nap. We need both. Courage to stay our course and gratitude for our path will keep us grounded and guide us home.
How beautiful and apt for this. Thank you so much, Latifah, for sharing that. Guys, if you don't have any other questions, we'll kind of end our chat. We will see you next week, Monday, same time. Once again, please do share if you have other topics you'd want us to discuss. If you have questions, share. My last ending quote is, life is too short for FOMO, YOLO instead.
Thank you so much. Thanks. That was lovely, Rabi. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys, for joining. We look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.